السلام عليكم. اليوم ان شاء الله غادي ندير لكم واحد الفيديو مهم جدا لاي واحد اللي في المغرب ولا في اي بلاصه بغى يجي هنا للامريكان باش يقرا ويخدم، بالخصوص الناس اللي خدامين ولا اللي قاريين في مجال برنامج المعلوميات. بقاو معايا ان شاء الله، غادي يكون فيديو مهم جدا. حنا مازال كنخدموا من الدار، ولكن اليوم ان شاء الله غنمشي للشركه باش ندير الانترفيو مع واحد السيده خدامه معايا اللي هي من الهند وجات هنايا باش تقرا وسالات قرايتها ولقات الخدمه وراها ساكنه هنايا وعايشه هنايا وتزوجت هنايا. غتحكي لكم القصه ديالها، وهذه وسيله اللي كيديروها بزاف ديال الهنود والناس اللي في اسيا، و ما معروفاش، ما كيديروش الناس بزاف في المغرب. غتعلموا منها، ونفس المراحل اللي دارته هي يقدر يدير اي بنادم في العالم كامل. ان شاء الله اليوم غادي يستافدكم هذا الفيديو. وواحد النقطه بغيت نزيدها، هذه مده ما درت فيديو، حيت كنت درت واحد الفيديوهات في الاول شي عامين ولا دابا عام ونص، وفي الاول ما كانوش بزاف ديال الناس اللي شافوهم. I was like ماشي مشكل، ما نزيدش. نسيت حتى شي هاد الايامات يلا حليت ديك الشانل، وشفت باللي بزاف الناس اللي شافوهم وكانوا بزاف ديال لي كومونتير تماك. غنحاول ان شاء الله نجاوب على الاسئله ديالكم كامله، والاغلبيه حول هذا الموضوع ديال كيفاش نجي للامريكان، كيفاش نمشي نقرا تماك. هذا الفيديو ان شاء الله غنجاوب لكم، غادي غتكونوا فيه كاع، غنلقاو فيه كاع الاجوبه اللي كتقلبوا عليها. بقاو معنا وحاولوا ديروا سبسكرايب باش ان شاء الله نبقى نطلع فيديوهات اخرين وتبقاو تشوفوهم ان شاء الله. اوكي، يلا نمشيو دابا. I'm here with Unnati, who works with me here, and she came to the US from India through the visa process. She came for school and then she got a job, and she will tell you guys how she did it. It's the exact same thing from Morocco or from any other country or from India. So let's start with the first question. And I hope you guys understand English. If you don't, then you have bigger problems. I'm not going to translate this. First question. I guess, why did you decide to come to the US in the first place?
Oh yeah, it's a good one. So it wasn't the US per se, but since my childhood I just wanted to experience study abroad. Like, what would it mean to just explore a different kind of education system, because in India it's a lot about just cram up, like mug up this syllabus and just spit it out in the exams. And I had watched movies and I knew that in the US it's a lot more practical, and you get to do if it's computer science, there's a lot of coding instead of just like learning algorithms and not actually implementing it. Not that India doesn't do it, but at least the college that I was in, I didn't write code all 4 years of my information technology degree that I was doing, and a lot of others did, but I didn't do it because I don't think that was the education system of my particular university. And so since I knew US is all about hands-on and so many inventions happen in US, that's when I decided I want to explore something different than India. And then US was my natural inclination because it was computer science. For somebody who wants to do mechanical, they would probably want to go to Germany, but for computer science, I think US made more sense. So one, I always wanted to try a different experience. Second, US was the leader in tech, so I came here.
I think that's a really good point, because a lot of Moroccans go to Europe as like their first choice if they want to continue their education abroad. And as she said, if you're thinking about computer science, anything technology related, you're definitely better with the US, because it's the leading country in the world in this field, right? You're not going to find anything better, both education and work and pay. We'll talk more about that. Okay, so let's now you decided you want to go to the US. What did you do? Did you come here for school or for work, or what was the process?
Yeah, so I came here for my master's because I'd already done my undergrad back in India. And I've done my research, and I know with masters the H1B process is bit easier because of how H1B works is it's a lottery system, and there's a designated pool of how many H1B visas are given, and for masters there's a slot, like I think 100k or something. I'm not sure if the exact number, you can look it up, but there is a reserved spot for pool of master's students, and so I know it's gonna. So I had done my masters. I knew with I'd done my bachelor's, and I knew masters would make sense, and so I started looking to figure out what's the process to go to masters in the US, and I found out about GRE and TOEFL. So these are 2 exams that you need to clear, and then you apply for whichever university you want to come and study. And for me,
so you choose which one.
Yes,
so you apply
choose,
directly to that.
So you have like an application fee. So for people on budget, it's very tricky because you have to figure out the one that's ambitious, which is good, which helps you land a job. Expenses. So for me, I think expenses was a pretty big factor. I was working back in India before I came for masters. I worked for 2 years in India at IBM. I was getting very little, like my pay was very, very little, and I didn't want to ask my parents. So I think I just applied for 4 universities, and I was very thoughtful of the location. So I went to Texas especially because I found out that the living costs are really low in Texas, and that's why I went there. And I also had a friend there, so she was able to guide me on like who to talk to, like seniors and etc. So so I did my GRE, TOEFL, applied for a few colleges, and I had help from my friends in the US who were able to guide me which place has like safety, expenses, good university, good education, and that's where I landed up.
That's a really good point. I think a lot of Moroccans, there are not that many Moroccans here in the US. We're very few. So a lot of people watching, they probably don't have friends, right? So I'm gonna try to maybe have another video another time about what are good locations, because I think that's really important, right? The US is a very different, there's a lot of things that are different from state to state. So that's something you should consider, right? You should balance between good college, good university that will get you a job versus how much it's going to cost, right? If you go into MIT or Harvard, expect to pay big bills versus, but you guarantee the job afterwards for sure. But a smaller college might cost you less, but you'll have to put more work to find a job. Anyway, so you've decided where to go. You applied to colleges, you got accepted to, I'm guessing, your choice or whatever. You chose one, you passed your GRE test or your TOEFL test for English. Then what happens? You get the visa or something? How does that work?
So the GRE TOEFL is the first part. When you get the results, you apply.
Then
so you
apply,
cannot apply without these 2 things. That's like a prerequisite for the application. Once you get selected, there's a weird chicken and egg problem that happens. So the university will not issue you the I-20 form, which is needed to get a visa, unless you show funds. And that document has
funds in your bank account?
So that document has exact US dollars mentioned, and they say that unless you show, which is like 1 year.
Is it a lot? 1 year's worth?
It was $37,000 on that document, and I was supposed to show that money in some form, either a loan or a bank account statement to say that I have enough funds to come to the US. And I had thought I'd use the loan to get that dog, but the bank won't give me loan saying, I don't know if you even have a valid admit, and the college wouldn't give me the admit without showing the bank.
So you took a loan in India?
I had to, but there was like this chicken and egg problem. So luckily, as that friend of mine, her brother was working in Houston, and he was kind enough to all he had to do was show his bank account statement. So he was kind enough to
sponsor you, kind of thing?
So he was.
So it doesn't have to be your account. It could be your dad's account.
Anybody.
So as long as you have some money somewhere.
In that doc, when you request for I-20, you say someone sponsored me, and then they have to show their funds. And I didn't use it, but it helped me to at least get that doc. And then I got that doc, I got the loan, and then I took my loan document and that admit, like I-20, to get the visa.
Got it. So Okay, so so another important thing she said is she took a loan, right? So this is an investment in your future. You paid some money, but how much did you make after?
yeah.
It's probably like not even there's no comparison between the two. You make
And
so
it
much
changes
more
your
afterward.
life,
It
like-
changes your life. The best
And-
investment of your life. Right. So one thing actually I want to go back to is you were working in India, but then you came to study here. But your eventual goal is to find a job here in the US. But you couldn't come straight from India to work in the US. There are some special cases for like transferring between companies. Like if you work for a company in Morocco, that company is in the US, they can transfer you if there is a need for it. It's really hard, it's a rare case, but your best option is to come here to study, just like you did, just like most people do. Come here to study your master or bachelor if you want as well, and then get to the job market from there. Okay, so now let's say you finished school, you had a visa, it's called F1, that has 5 years
Yeah.
validity. So you went to school for 2 years, and then you have 3 years left to find a job and switch to a different type of visa, because that F1 visa expires after 5 years, you cannot renew it.
Yes.
It's only good while you're a student, and then from student, when you're done school, they give you that 3 period of time called OPT to work, find a job, transfer to H1B, which is the visa that you want to get on, because that one you can renew every 6 years, I believe, right?
3 years.
3 years. So, what was your experience? How did you get from school to finding a job?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I landed an internship in March of
find
2017, and
Internship where?
at Amazon.
At Amazon?
Yeah, and then I got a full-time offer as soon as I finished my internship.
Nice.
So my next year's expenses, so my loan was just good enough to cover the first year. So I don't know how I was
Oh.
too, ambitious and confident to just travel to the US with only
Just
knowing
1
that
year,
I had
yeah.
1 year of
How did you
fee.
get through the second year?
I used all the money that Amazon paid me during my internship to pay for my third semester.
Oh, nice.
And then I
How
got
long was the
my
internship? A few months?
2 months.
2 months? Was it enough to cover?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
And,
We're talking about like how much money they pay, even for an intern, is enough to
It
cover
was
a lot
enough
of
to
the
cover
expense.
one semester,
Yeah,
and
that's
then I got my taxes back, and I used that to pay for my last semester's
Okay.
fee. So basically,
Wow.
I had come here only with 1 year of fee, and the second year actually covered itself.
Nice. So I guess the one thing you should know is if you're coming here, you're gonna
not
have to put in
easy.
the work. It's not
Yeah.
easy. You're competing with the best of the best. Be ready to work and go to school at the same time, unless if you're super rich, and also be ready to compete and prepare for interviews to get a job. So for her, in her case, she found an internship and then she got back to the same company.
So another interesting thing is, as soon as you finish your masters, you have 3 months to find job. And if you don't find job within these 3 months, you don't get the OPD, and then you're
Okay.
supposed to go back.
Yeah. But one thing to know is, like, if you're good at what you're doing, there is a huge demand
Oh,
in
yeah.
the software industry. It's just a little bit hard at the beginning when you're out of school, because it's like they want people with experience, but to get an experience you need a job. It's like a chicken and egg problem.
Yeah.
It's a little bit hard at the beginning, but then afterwards it's really easy just to find jobs. Okay, so your company has to sponsor you in order to get an H1B.
Yeah.
When you get an H1B, you're pretty much set, as long as you have a job and you're doing a good job at your job. The goal is to stay on H1B, renew it every time, and then after some time, well, immediately after you start working at the company, they also sponsor you for a green card, which is what you want to get, which is permanent residency. And that differs per country. I know for India, because there's a huge line, it could take 10 plus years, 18 years, which is crazy. But for people from Morocco, if you do manage to make it here to this point, you're good. You can get yours in 1 to 2 years, because they are not, the queue is per country. In Morocco, there aren't that many here. That's how I did mine. I got my green card after 2 years of working here. So it's fairly simple. So, okay, I think we've covered all the main points.
Well, I think we're going to cover masters versus bachelors.
Oh, you're right. Let's talk a little bit about master
Yeah.
versus bachelor.
So I've met a few people who've done their bachelors here. I think bachelors is a lot more overwhelming in terms of cultural shock, because you're a student right out of school, and then a lot of bachelors is not very international. So you'll have a lot of Americans or whichever country you go to, like you'll have natives at that place doing bachelors, and you'll probably be one outlier who's an international student. You pay more because you're an international student. You don't get to make friends, I guess.
It's 4 years instead of 2.
Yes, and second, your F1, you just have 1 year left in your F1 to do your job, and versus masters, you get 3 years to. Even if you don't get H1, you could go back after practicing, like studying or doing good work here. That's different, and in masters, where you see very little. It's just international students. The whole my batch was just. I think I had like 2 American students, and everybody was either Indian or Chinese.
Yeah.
So that gives you an edge where everybody's international, so you don't feel like left out or.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who come here for a bachelor degree, it's either because they got a scholarship. Scholarship is a common thing. Everything is paid for you, or they are very rich, or they are very good at what they're doing, or they have
a
something.
family.
Or they have a family here, exactly, willing to support them. It's definitely more challenging. You only have 1 year, so I'd say, unless if you're really good at it and you have all what we just mentioned, probably better to just study in your home country and then come here and into a master degree. It's the best way to get into the tech industry in the US.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're good. 21 minutes.
Awesome.
That's good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Unnati, for
No
your time
problem.
and
Yeah.
this helpful information. Out of Morocco, thanks you.
Oh, thank you so much. I hope this helps somebody.
I hope so.